So I'm here to talk about Emotional Objects, which was an event I ran as part of last year's festival at the Royal College of Nursing. It was a drop-in festival type event in itself. So it was basically a talks programme and then a bunch of stalls where all of our researchers were doing like a different activity. And it ran in 2 slots, one in the afternoon and one in the evening. So it started at about 2 p.m. and finished at 9. I think we had a break in the middle. I've never evaluated something to the extent I evaluated this. And I've honestly got to say it was incredibly rewarding. It was fun, I really enjoyed doing it, and we all got a lot out of it. So if you take nothing else away, my message is evaluation can be fun. And one of the reasons I think it was really successful is that the evaluation was holistic. So it was built in throughout the event, it wasn't just tagged on at the end. And it tied really strongly with the overall themes of the event, both the research themes and what we wanted to get out of it. So basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to walk you through what happened when you came to the event and the things that you encountered. And I should say as well that we had 175 attendees, there were about 13 researchers involved, and we also had external collaborators, so we worked with 2 artists, some cocktail makers, the RCN were our venue. The RCN is the Royal College of Nursing and it's at Oxford Circus. So you could go and check it out while you're in London if you haven't been before. Okay, so basically, these are the aims of our event. There's actually quite a lot of them. Basically to raise the profile for the Centre of the History of the Emotions, which was, this is where I was working previously. The Centre for the History of the Emotions is a group of historians, literature researchers and languages people, and basically their remit is emotions are socially and historically constructed. So how we experience emotion depends on where we are in terms of like geographical space, the much more local space, the point of history that we're in. We wanted to increase the skills of our PhD students and other team members on the project. We wanted to attract a particular kind of audience. We wanted them to learn about the ways in which objects mediate and shape our emotional responses, and so that was why the event was called Emotional Objects. That tied in with the theme of all of the public engagement events which were happening at Queen Mary, which is the university I was previously affiliated with, and also with the being human aims, because obviously the festival has its own theme and aims each year. Some of our objectives here. We wanted to attract about 300 attendees. We wanted to have a variety of different events, stalls, activities and talks. We wanted to contribute to the festival and represent QM research. And we wanted to run a public event with a theme that had a widespread appeal. Some more, these are evaluation type ones. The reason I've shown you this is because the reason we managed to evaluate effectively is because we planned our aims and our objectives. And we said, this is what we want to do, how will I measure that? And these are basically some of the ways in which we measured it. I'm going to talk you through it because this changed inevitably. So when you turned up at the event, what happened was you got given 2 stickers. You got given one of those tiny little coloured dots, and you got given a sticker that looked something like this skull here at the bottom. What you see above the skull is a banner. Every single stall had its own banner, and they all had a charm, because the theme was emotional objects. And so when you got your sticker, it corresponded to a charm that was on a banner, and that was basically to manage flow of people when they went into the event. Because when we'd run events previously, we'd found that people would all cluster around specific activities. So basically you had to go and find your stall and start there. And then the second thing that you did was that you either took a photo of an emotional talisman that you brought with you, or you wrote something about it on a parcel tag. This is the 3rd time that we tried to run emotional talismans, and this time we finally got it right. So I think there's something to be said for practicing, or trying again and again the things that you want to do. If they don't work the first time, refine, and you'll get there. So the way this worked this time was that I'd sent a lot of email messages out beforehand saying either bring an object that you feel emotionally attached to with you, or be prepared to write something down on a parcel tag for us. Because what had happened in the past was that people didn't bring stuff with them. But people did bring stuff. They brought things like they wore their favourite skirt, or they brought with them a wooden spoon that was a family heirloom. And this was basically to prime them for the aim of the event, which I said was to get people to think about the ways in which objects and emotions are affected and inflect one another. And we found that really successful in previous events, getting people to start thinking about what we wanted them to take away before they actually came in and entered properly. So then they walked past our evaluation stand. So this was the overall evaluation for the end, for the whole event. So what happened was that they came here and they went, oh, there's sweets here, and like marbles and a marble run, what's going on? And my evaluation helpers, who were student ambassadors from the university, said, come back later. If you come back later and do the evaluation, you can have a lolly, or you can have a wagon wheel. I didn't plan this actually, but this worked really well because it meant that people were intrigued and they knew that they needed to come back at the end. Okay. So then what happened was that they encountered a yes/no box. And there's a question here, are healthy emotions today the same as healthy emotions in the past? Yes or no, put a token in a box. Michael put it on Twitter and said that it was too yes or no-y.
Too binary.
Yeah. And this was basically so I could benchmark. I wanted to know what people knew when they came in, so that I could compare it to what they knew at the end. So that was why that was there. Then they went and did all their activities, so they spoke to all of our researchers, and pretty much every activity had its own evaluation built into it. So this is origami birds from one of our artists' installations. At the end, we asked people to choose a coloured piece of paper which was associated with a particular emotion, and you chose the colour of paper to reflect how you felt about the activity that you'd just done. And then a volunteer helped people to fold it into origami cranes, which were hung up as part of the artist's installation. So the evaluation became part of the art. So I'll just go back to the first slide, because then you can see the cranes hanging up at the end there. And then this is Edgar. He was doing a thing about lost dead in London. It's about mortal remains and about how they're everywhere in London. That was inspired by his research and my research, and because Queen Mary has a cemetery right in the middle of campus. So a lot of the sites of the university are actually built on top of the cemetery. And so he had a postcard. It had a quote on the other side of it that collected information from people about how they felt about being close to mortal remains. So they all went and had a lovely time, I hope. And then they came back to the evaluation. So basically this is a marble run, and each of the bits that you put the marble through in the marble run has a number on it, and they correspond with a statement. And basically what we asked people to do was to read the statements and then to choose a marble to put through the run, and the colour of the marble signified the strengths to which they agreed or disagreed with the statement. So they said things like, I learnt something at emotional objects, how I feel is affected by where I am and who I'm with, I want to know more about the centre, and how I feel about objects has changed. And if you chose a red marble, it was like, no, disagree completely. And if you chose a blue, it was like, yeah, I absolutely agree, and then obviously we had some middle ground, so yeah, we had meh, and we had a bit. So yeah, so what happened was that people put their marbles through the marble run, and so we collected what I would, in quite a loose way, call quantitative and qualitative data, because I could say exactly how many people had said that they'd learned something at the event, but also I got a sense of whether they'd learned something, what they'd taken away from it, that kind of thing. I should say, this was nostalgia themed. So the whole of the evaluation was themed around nostalgia because it was an event about emotions. And we chose childhood toys as the object that you might feel emotional about. So that's why it's a marble run. There was also a game of Guess Who there. That was like, not part of the evaluation insofar as it was just table dressing. And there was an Etch-a-Sketch so that people could draw pictures if they wanted to. And then, as I say, there were sweets. So there was sherbet lemons, wagon wheels, drumstick, lollies, Tanix tea cakes, stuff that I thought people might feel nostalgic about from their past. So that was the first part of the evaluation. There was also, oh god, there was so much stuff. But there was also a second table, which you can just kind of see off to the side here, which is where we had questionnaires. Thank you. And I had evaluation helpers asking people to fill out the questionnaires, and I had pencils with troll toppers on, and I had those pens with all the different colours that you can choose the colour to write in. So again, it was all kind of tied together. What else do I need to say about that? Okay, so what did we find out? What's those things? So on the marble run, we found out that 25% of participants agreed that how they felt about objects had changed a bit, and 42 said, yeah, it absolutely had. 81% of people wanted to know more about the centre. 81% of people agreed that how and what they feel is affected by where they are and who they're with. So we got some real data out of this. We also had a questionnaire. Now this was the questionnaire that was provided by Being Human that we had to fill out as part of being funded. So we found out some more qualitative stuff from this. So there were health and well-being impacts. People said that it improved their mood, that they found it therapeutic to come to the event. Lots of stuff about how it changed how they thought about objects. And I think, I'm working as an impact manager now, so for me, this is very, we had quantitative stuff, but we also had the more in-depth stuff that you can quote in an impact case study. And I think that mixture of data is really effective, especially if you need to write some kind of report at the end about what you did. Just going back to the stickers, so at the end of the evaluation, you also had to return your coloured sticker, and you could basically choose if you wanted to put it on, where you wanted to put it on this continuum. So you're answering a question, are emotions the same as in the past or different through history? Are they good for our health or bad for our health? Are they contagious or not contagious? They also returned their charm sticker, and this was basically like, how much did you enjoy the event? And it was a 1 to 5. And lots of people stuck their sticker on the one saying that they loved it, which I was really happy about. The other picture at the bottom there is the tables that were at the bar, so we wrote questions on them. It was paper tablecloth, but wrote questions on them and asked people to write answers. Got lots of feedback that way as well. There's loads of stuff. That was a good thing and a bad thing. We got loads of data out of the event, but I was a single point of failure. So because I designed it all, no one else knew how to do it. And I spent quite a lot of time at the beginning explaining that to people, explaining to my evaluation helpers what they needed to do, but I forgot some bits, and so some bits just didn't happen. So for example, when you gave back your coloured sticker, you could switch it for a plastic bracelet. Do you remember those from, when I was at school, you could have all those coloured plastic bracelets. And we'd ask people to choose the stickers according to an emotion that they were feeling when they came in, but we let themselves select that, so red could mean whatever it wanted to them. And then the idea was that you would trade it for a bracelet at the end, and I would have a sense of how people's perception of their well-being had changed across the event. I forgot to count how many bracelets there were at the beginning. So I don't know how many blue ones went, or how many red ones went, or how many black ones went, or anything like that. Other challenges, I asked if you want to know more about the Centre for the History of the Emotions, but I forgot to put the sign-up sheet for the mail list out. So lots of people wanted to know more about the Centre for the History of the Emotions, but it didn't capture, there was no facility for them to sign up, which would have been a much more effective way to collect that data. I could talk about this for hours. I'm going to stop now. The other thing I just want to say is that our questionnaires were also for the contributors, not just for the participants. So there were lots of effects for the people who took part in the event, our researchers, our artists, etc. Mine says that I got a new job out of this, which is true because I interviewed for the post that I'm in now a week before this event, and I talked about it endlessly. So, I think you get so many benefits out of doing something like this, and so many benefits out of evaluating properly, and it's really important to capture all of those things, and that the people that you work with will be having all kinds of really interesting effects on them, and not just on the people who come to your thing, and it's really important to capture that.
Thanks, Helen. That was some great examples of evaluation material that can be used. So up next we have Vicki Mcginnis from Torch, who we're lucky enough that we've had involved in the festival several times. But I think she's going to talk about her events in 2017.
Yeah, don't worry, I've got it on here somewhere, just bear with me. I'll awkwardly find my talk, the way it's moved. Okay. So hello everybody. I've managed to not put my name on my PowerPoint. I'm not sure what that says about my ego or my imposter syndrome, but I am really Vicki Mcginnis. And I'm really proud to say that I'm also Dr. Vicki Mcginnis because I got my thesis approved a week and a half ago. Yay! So a shout out for all the people doing part-time PhDs while working full-time. It hurts. I wouldn't recommend it to anybody. But anyway, this isn't therapy for me, but thanks. I'm here to talk about Torch. So I work in the University of Oxford. Torch is part of the Humanities Division. And what that means is we work with all the different faculties that are in the Humanities Division, but we work also across the university. And the point that relates mostly to being human is that we work with external partners quite regularly. This is a personal thing for me. My PhD was in museum studies. So my background is in museums. I've worked as a consultant in various different ways, and I'm very passionate about communicating to publics, but also using partnerships as a way to do that. So you can imagine, I am a massive fan of the Being Human Festival. I'm just getting my notes out, so I realise I've started talking without getting my notes out. Here we go. My role at Torch is I run the research centre, so we seed fund research projects, we fund DPhils and postdocs, but also I support a lot of research engagement, so I call it public and wider engagement. We work with maybe Médecins Sans Frontières, it will be the NHS, or quite regularly it's museums, and you'll see that the two examples I'm going to give you today. From 2016, Fright Friday at the Ashmolean Museum in Oxford, and Lost Lake, Night at the Museum. I've got to slip that in there for you. I've also tweeted about it, so, but can be Lost Lake for short. Love alliteration. That was last year in 2017, and then I'm going to touch on what we're going to do this year. And you'll notice I seem to get bigger each year because I get super excited, and I think being part of a wider, amazing festival like this is an opportunity to do that. It's a safe, supported environment to do that. So those of you that are new to this, welcome, you're going to love it. Okay, so I've explained a little bit about what Torch does. And why that fits into our remit of supporting impact. Now, impact can mean many different things. In my context, it does mean ref impact. So luckily, we've got excellent colleagues in the Humanities Division as well that look after impact and evaluation and the ref impact case studies. However, my remit is far broader than that, in that it's about genuine quality engagement. So we'll probably work with anything between 300 to 400 researchers each year. And we work in quite a bespoke way because public engagement is not for everybody. And where Being Human fits brilliantly into that is it enables me to create an agile framework into which I can bring researchers to do their own types of public engagement. So I hope you'll see that as we go throughout. I'll also highlight what we did, much as you did really well, to sort of weave in evaluation, because I'm all about the evaluation forms, but also everyone feels a bit over-evaluated sometimes, so doing those interactive things is brilliant. And I'm totally stealing the mouse run marbles thing. I did think about your risk assessment of putting sweets next to marbles. If Jamie was here, he'd say that, so just highlighting that here. So public engagement is at the core of what I think is important in sharing research, and that fits exactly with the remit of the Being Human Festival. Here is my wonderful colleague who has left Oxford now, but is now an assistant professor at LSE, love her dearly. She had told me about Mers Tate, who was this amazing researcher from the 1930s, one of the first African-American women to graduate from the University of Oxford. And she was like, yeah, nobody seems to know much about Mers Tate. So she did amazing work involving in her research. And we included this in an exhibition we put around Oxford, the Gaps Between installation. So my idea was, there's a lot of railings in Oxford, so we could use them as a public display, right? Where better to reach the public than actually go and share it with them right there. That made evaluation interesting, right? Because people are walking past, you've got a transient audience. But it was really interesting as a thing to do, and of course a lot of community engagement was part of the lead up to this. So this is wonderful Dr. Imabong Imran looking with her picture there. And I'm not sure if you can see it quite well. Professor Mers Tate is here in the exact position, and this is the Radcliffe camera. I don't know if you know Oxford at all, that round building. Okay. I had to get up at 6 a.m. to tape up that exact position because it's usually full of bikes. So, you know, when you're talking about a little bit of, you know, random sort of work for this, that's the sort of thing you do. So, why do we get involved? National Festival of Humanities, run by professional, experienced and collaborative people. I can't rave about the team enough, okay? So the support we get with everything here, take it all home, eat it, ingest it, it's exactly what you can do. It's so good for individual researchers, it's great for research centres to learn and reflect and understand what we can do better each time. Every year I think, oh, next year, you know, we can do this, or I can sort of connect with these people. It's always brilliant to do, so thank you guys. The support in the communications is stellar, event delivery and evaluation, because I think that's the bit where people then get to it afterwards, because it's so much effort, isn't it, to deliver an event. And then you get to it afterwards and go, oh, I wonder what they thought, you know? The one takeaway I'd like you to have from my mini talk here is evaluation is not to be done at the end. And I think that's something you touched on really well. If you know your aims and objectives, who, what, why, then you can weave in the evaluation into it. It doesn't need to be massive and painful. It's actually about just challenging, you know, people's perceptions and sharing with them and understanding. So yeah, and the kudos. So I don't know if you guys know this, but there's usually a fight in Oxford. You know, everyone's wanting to get in on the Being Human Festival. And what's brilliant now is everyone comes together. And the two examples I'm going to give you, each year there are 30 to 33 researchers that all collaborate as part of it. So it's a really nice way to bring people together too. So research-led engagement activities, as I've said. It's also giving me an opportunity to build in connections for researchers, the potential for impact. So again, going back to what, I'm not going to dwell on it here, but impact is something that you want to look at in a longitudinal way. But you can look at your reach through the quantitative data, as you've said already, but also getting those qualitative responses. You know, that free text box is always really important. Not only for future funding applications, but all you know, did we do well? So yeah, so touching on the first event that we did in 2016, this was called Fright Friday. So as you can tell with Lost Late, I like alliteration. And what I love is people go, okay, so you're going to do Fright Night again? I'm like, it's Fright Friday. But also, the fact that people assume this is a common thing, it's great, because that means it's building into, it's changing cultures, right? We did it with the Ashmolean Museum in Oxford. I did work there 7 years, so I had an understanding of the building. And what was wonderful is being able to partner with an institution that has more capacity than you, and then you can make realistic goals. This is really important. It's also interesting to see what their aims are for their evaluation. Okay, so their aim is to reach 16 to 25-year-olds. Brilliant. Their ability to reach all areas of Oxford is also really helpful to what we're doing. So, partnership in heaven. Yes, that is a volcano on the forecourt. So again, you can do whatever you like. But again, risk assessment forms. And here we have school groups. So this school groups was performing they'd already put this together. It's called Project Q. So it's looking at homophobia in schools. We have a researcher here at the top who will be part of a REF impact case study. We have an early to mid-career researcher here who was involved in opera performance. So you see, you can do all manner of things. And I put these pictures up here because you can do small group things. So we did targeted evaluation there with individual groups. This is Professor Steve Gunn with his Tudor accidents. So he has, it is that funny. So also understanding your research audience. So Professor Steve Gunn, he looks like your wonderful researcher that you might find at the University of Oxford. He has an ESRC funded project looking at Tudor accidents. So I was like, how about we do a game? He didn't fall over, I was like, I'm still in. Okay, and we call it, How Did They Die? So, the name, but the principle's the same. And that is, he had the boards, he had the archival material, and he had option A, B, or C. Everyone puts their hands up. They died, they drowned in their own sewage. Oh. So, it's really interesting to then see and challenge people's perception of what Oxford research can be about. It's not all toilets, but I just use that example. People dress up, we do bite-sized talks, this is the head of development, working with children. So, it gives you an opportunity to do bigger things. Publications can come out of it, and I'm talking, we mostly focus on online material. And researcher-written material. So again, when we're talking about follow-ups, that's a really important part of the evaluation process. Lost Slate, that was last year with the Pitt Rivers and the Natural History Museum. Again, following the same principles, involved 32 researchers. The one fact I will highlight here, when you're talking about public audience, as we've heard already from Jamie, public who have no connection to the university, they are public. It was 56%. Now, typically at a Torch event, it's 20 to 30%. So again, partnering with an institution that enables you to reach different audiences is really important. And the program, you can see it's all research-tastic, but timing things is really important, because then you fixate a particular audience that wants to see a thing, then you've got the chance to evaluate it. We built things into a lot of these activities, and we also did one-to-one surveys, vox pop videos, that sort of thing. And this is what we're doing this year. So we have Professor Sally Shuttleworth, who has an AHRC funded project. And I met this wonderful projection artist and sound artist team who are willing to collaborate with us. They've worked with the Ordered Universe project before. I don't know if you've seen their material. And what we're going to do is we're going to co-curate a piece up until November. We're going to project it onto the front of the Radcliffe Infirmary in Oxford. We're going to do all community engagement until November and community engagement on the night. So yeah, come and join us if you're free. Thank you very much.